Anna came first, her face pale and strained before it transformed into shock and relief all at once. Stacy followed close behind, and Greg stepped out from between two trees, his eyes immediately locking onto the broken exterior door behind Carter. Wendy ran the moment she saw Simone clearly. She closed the distance without hesitation, wrapping her arms tightly around her, holding her as if she were afraid she might disappear again. Anna reached them seconds later, tears visible even in the dim light as she touched Simone's shoulder carefully, as if confirming she was physically there. "We found you," Wendy whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. Greg stood a few steps back, staring at the broken lock and then at Carter, trying to process how they had arrived at the exact right moment. For the first time in over a month, Simone was no longer inside that cage. She stood in the open air, surrounded by familiar faces, trembling but free. And at that moment, everyone believed they had made it just in time. Once the initial shock settled just enough for them to think clearly, Greg insisted they needed to get back to the main road where cell service was stronger. Carter stayed close to Simone as they moved through the woods, keeping one arm around her shoulders while Wendy held her other side. Anna and Stacy walked slightly ahead. Simone's legs felt weak with every step, but she forced herself to keep moving. The trees that had once felt suffocating now seemed endless, stretching on longer than she remembered when she had first been led out. When they finally reached the edge of the woods and stepped back onto the narrow road, Greg immediately dialed 911. His voice was steady but urgent as he explained that they had located Simone in an abandoned property in the wooded area and that she had been held captive in the basement. He described the broken lock, the partitioned metal enclosure, and the supplies they had seen inside. Within minutes, dispatch confirmed that units were on the way. The wait felt long, even though it wasn't. Simone sat in the back seat of Anna's car with Wendy beside her, wrapped in a jacket someone had handed her, her hands still trembling. Carter stood just outside the car door, scanning the tree line as if expecting someone to emerge at any moment. The rest of them remained close, the adrenaline still running high. Red and blue lights appeared in the distance, growing brighter as patrol cars approached. Officers stepped out quickly, asking immediate questions like where exactly was the property, if anyone else was still inside, and was the suspect seen leaving. Greg and Anna directed them toward the path they had taken, pointing toward the tree line where the abandoned structure sat hidden from the road. Within minutes, additional units arrived. Officers moved into the woods with flashlights and weapons drawn, following the direction given to them. Some remained behind with Simone, taking an initial statement while paramedics examined her for immediate medical concerns. She answered what she could, her voice shaky but coherent, describing the basement, the metal fencing, the daily visits from the masked man. Police secured the perimeter first. They cleared the exterior of the abandoned house carefully, moving room by room before heading down into the basement. The heavy metal door at the top of the stairs was still hanging slightly ajar from where Carter had forced it open. Officers documented everything before stepping inside. The basement confirmed her story. Half of the space had been partitioned off with thick metal fencing bolted into the concrete. The broken padlock lay on the floor. Inside the enclosed area were the bed, the dresser, the bathroom partition, and the supplies she had described. On the open side of the basement, officers located the black duffel bag along with rope, zip ties, cleaning products, a shovel, and the box of condoms left on the table. Forensics was called in immediately. They photographed the entire scene, collected the items carefully, and dusted surfaces for prints. The insulation lining the walls was examined, confirming that the space had been deliberately soundproofed. Upstairs, the abandoned house showed signs of recent activity despite appearing vacant from the outside. There were food containers in the trash, bottled water stacked in a corner, and evidence that someone had been coming and going without drawing attention. Meanwhile, search teams expanded outward into the surrounding woods. They followed the scooter tracks Greg had pointed out, documenting the path and checking for additional impressions that might indicate where the suspect had fled. Officers canvassed the area for security cameras along nearby roads, hoping to trace any recent scooter rentals or suspicious activity. Simone was transported to the hospital shortly after. As the ambulance doors closed, she caught a final glimpse of the flashing lights reflecting off the trees and the outline of the abandoned house disappearing behind officers moving in and out. For the first time in over a month, she wasn't being escorted back down into darkness. Behind her, the investigation had officially shifted from missing person to confirmed abduction. And somewhere in the woods, the man who had kept her captive had vanished. A couple of days after she was found, Simone was still in the hospital, her body safe, but her mind struggling to settle. The doctors said she was physically stable, just underweight and dehydrated from prolonged stress, but they were more concerned about the psychological impact. She startled easily at sudden noises, had trouble sleeping without the lights on, and woke up more than once thinking she heard footsteps outside her room. But her friends from work came in shifts. Because they all worked in the same department and shared the same space every day, her absence had felt personal to each of them. Anna brought flowers and sat by her bedside, talking softly about normal things, trying to anchor her to familiar conversations about work gossip and office updates. Stacy hugged her longer than usual and told her how proud she was for surviving. Greg stood awkwardly near the window at first, unsure what to say, but eventually admitted he hadn't stopped thinking about those scooter tracks since the moment he saw them. Wendy rarely left her side. She stayed overnight in the hospital chair more than once, refusing to let Simone wake up alone. When Simone was discharged and allowed to return home, Wendy packed a bag and moved into her apartment temporarily without hesitation. She slept on the couch, made sure the doors were locked twice each night, and answered every phone call so Simone wouldn't have to. Carter came every day. He was there the morning after she returned home, carrying groceries and insisting she shouldn't have to worry about cooking or errands. He offered to fix the small things around her apartment that suddenly felt unsafe to her, checking the locks, installing brighter bulbs near the entrance, and adjusting the security settings on her phone. He stayed late into the evenings, sitting with her on the couch when the silence became too heavy. Eventually, Simone found herself leaning on him more than anyone else. There was something grounding about his presence, something steady. He had been there in the basement. He had broken the lock and he had walked her out into the night air. That memory clung to her whenever fear started creeping back in. One evening, as Wendy stepped out to pick up dinner, Simone opened up to Carter in a way she hadn't fully done with anyone else. She told him about the routine of the masked man, how he never spoke, how he stood there silently every day like a shadow. She described the night he had stood over her bed while she was sleeping, how she had woken up to see him watching her. Her voice shook when she talked about the ropes, the tape, and the box left on the table. Carter listened without interrupting. He sat close but not too close, nodding slowly, his expression serious and protective. When she finished, he told her that she was strong for surviving something like that not everyone could endure that level of fear and still be standing. His reassurance felt genuine, and she let herself cry for the first time without trying to hold it back. Over the next week, the visits became routine. Anna and Stacy came by less frequently as work picked back up, though they still checked in regularly through messages. Greg stopped by on weekends, always bringing something small such as coffee, pastries, updates about the investigation. Wendy, however, remained constant until she couldn't anymore. Wendy's job required her to return home, and while she didn't want to leave, she could see the shift happening between Simone and Carter. They had grown closer in a way that felt natural under the circumstances. Simone felt safer when he was there, as she slept more easily on nights he stayed late. He handled phone calls with detectives when Simone didn't have the energy. Before Wendy left, she sat with Simone at the kitchen table and asked if she was sure. Simone nodded slowly.